Bloomberg has learned that the SEC is looking into the downgrade to find out whether S&P followed its own procedures, and even if word of the decision was leaked to financial markets. Joining us from Washington to discuss the probe is former SEC Chairman Harvey Pitt, co-founder and CEO of Kalorama Partners. Harvey, it is good to see you this morning. Here's a question on the minds of everyone who has heard about this early-stage investigation. They want to know if, at the end of the day, the SEC could possibly force S&P to reverse its downgrade. I doubt that that's possible, but you would know. Tell us.
Absolutely not, and they probably shouldn't want S&P to do that. The SEC can impose all sorts of procedures and policies on rating agencies and can ensure that if they have not followed them, that they must make disclosure of that. But it would be impossible for the SEC to dictate what the appropriate rating for U.S. government Treasury notes are, and they wouldn't even attempt it.
So, Harvey, if in fact the SEC finds that that Standard & Poor's did not follow its own procedures, processes, and methodology in the decision process that went into, or the decision making that went into the downgrade, and that perhaps even somebody at Standard & Poor's either deliberately or knowingly leaked this information to participants in the market, what's the worst thing that could happen to people at Standard & Poor's and to the company itself?
Well, if the company has engaged in leaking material non-public information, which a downgrade rating would be, the company would have committed what is potentially a felony under U.S. law. So people could go to jail for that. The company could be fined for that. And the company could be subject to very stringent remedial sanctions. All of that could occur if, in fact, it was the company that leaked this information.
Harvey, we do know, however, that there was contact between S&P and the outside world, as there often is. In fact, as you may have seen, there was a story in this weekend's New York Times detailing a meeting that took place between officials at Western Asset Management, a big bond fund manager, and folks from S&P several weeks, it would appear, before S&P actually downgraded America's AAA on August the 5th. And I do want to just run by you a quote from that story, and it's sourced to one of the people who participated in the meeting. This individual said, "You could tell a lot by their body language how carefully they answered certain questions. And the officials at Western Asset Management went away from that meeting absolutely certain that Standard & Poor's was going to downgrade." So if, in fact, there was no deliberate leak, is it not possible that SEC communicated its intentions to many people, not just Western Asset Management, long before August the 5th?
Well, if that, I saw the piece, and if, in fact, people were fairly obvious, one would have to question why they were meeting at all with private sector entities and why they would be answering or entertaining any questions regarding U.S. securities. That would be highly irregular and, barring some unthinkable reason, I think would be inexcusable.
But Harvey, these meetings take place all the time. In your opinion, as the former chairman of the SEC, should credit rating agencies like Standard & Poor's and Moody's and Fitch be barred from having such meetings with outside investors and be forced to conduct the credit analysis internally, and until they make a public statement, keep quiet about it?
It depends on what the purpose of the meeting was. For example, S&P met with members of the administration, the Treasury Department, and so on, and gave them advance indications of where they were likely to come out. That's entirely appropriate, because there's no incentive on the part of Treasury to broadcast a downgrade in advance. But if they were meeting with private investors and were discussing ratings of other entities, particularly right before they were about to give out a downgrade rating, I would consider that highly problematic.
Harvey, thanks for joining us here in the Inside Track. Harvey Pitt, the former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, he now runs Kalorama Partners.